Trinidad and Tobago has a crime problem. Now, that might be quite an understatement when you look at it more down in details, but it's the basic truth. Trinidad and Tobago has a crime problem. I was looking at a tweet over the weekend here where, someone was lamenting about wherever they go and they encourage people to visit Trinidad. They get the retorts about, hey, that place is really dangerous. And it's a saddening thing, and I saw some responses to that, and people were talking about, you have to be patriotic, and it's because Trinidadians bad talk about our country so often, and that might be the reason. And I'm wondering, but then we're looking into the actual news of the day and seeing what our country is attempting to do, what our government is attempting to do, what the police service is attempting to do about the crime situation, and the reality that it is really and truly a bad thing. Even when looked at in relativity, you look all around the world at the violent crime situation in other places. We aren't the only violent place in the world, but we are among the top 10 while also being a pretty wealthy country too. So you can understand why the complaints are there. We're going to delve into a bit of that in this video. If you are interested in that kind of stuff, hit that like button, drop a comment, tell me what you think about this content when you hear it. If you can drop the comment now, you could wait till the end. It also helps with the algorithm. If you are not yet subscribed, we're nearing that 1,000 mark, so hit that subscribe button. Tell somebody, hey, go subscribe to Nathan Spring over there on YouTube. Help me pass that 1,000 subscriber mark, and let's dive into it. So the tweet that I saw, every country from Major Penny, this is an entertainer in Trinidad and Tobago, every country I go to, I encourage people to experience TNT, and 90% of the responses are negative. Recurring responses: I don't want to die or get shot for somebody to kidnap or murder me. I don't see anything but crime about Trinidad in the news. It do be easy now. And that last bit there is where I saw a lot of criticism coming in with this, that the news coming out of Trinidad and Tobago, what is the frontline news, is very often crime and criminality, lots of violence. And people were saying that, as a tourism oriented country, at least partially, we need to be more careful about how we speak about our own country, the negative tones with which we carry this news. And I kinda agree to some extent. I mean, you don't want to be lambasting your country and speaking ill about your country unnecessarily. But at the same time, if someone in another country were to ask me about Trinidad and should I visit, and I were to give them a completely positive, totally glowing recommendation, come here, you'd be fine, and then they do come here and they are robbed, or worse yet, end up in a bit of a mix-up with one of these gangs, whose fault would that be? And the thing is, the probability of such a thing happening is not zero. It is not very low, because the country is legitimately violent. Wouldn't we like number 8 in terms of the top 10 violent places in the world with concern to murders? And I know regularly we see the police talking about the crime situation is down, and when they talk about that, I kind of just smirk to myself, because you could see that there's a little technique going on there with how you read the statistics, because the people, generally speaking, that are living in the country, they don't feel that. And we're going to dive into some of the news where the Prime Minister spoke about him being very cognizant of this fact, that he knows the people don't feel the security that sometimes they try to put out there. And he has a possible solution that he may be gearing up to implement. PM Rowley: corrupt cops putting lives in danger. Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley has revealed plans to create a specially vetted unit in the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service to investigate corrupt police officers and government officials. Now, that government officials part may make it a bit more tricky. Delivering the feature address at a People's National Movement political meeting at Harris Promenade in San Fernando on Saturday night, Rowley said that the initiative was suggested by United States security experts during bilateral talks with that country's government a few weeks ago. Now, looking at this suggestion coming from United States security experts, this seems to suggest to me, this is what it seems to suggest to me. I don't know that this was their view of everything, but to me, it seems to suggest that global level security experts, US security experts, and I mean, I am not one that sees everything in the United States as so much better, but in terms of global standards, by and large, if you see a security expert coming out of the United States to an international conference, you would suppose they're some kind of global level qualified. And these global level security experts, when looking at the violent criminal situation in Trinidad and Tobago, one of the things that they seem like they obviously came to as a conclusion was that the police service in this place may be too corrupt to take care of this criminal situation as it stands. Because if their suggestion to the Prime Minister of the country, this isn't just rum shop talk. These aren't people that saw the Prime Minister sitting somewhere on Brian Lara Promenade and walk up to him and say, Prime Minister, what you think about so and so and so? Hey, Dr. Keith, what you think? No, these are security experts that came with a recommendation, and their recommendation was to bypass the regular rank and file of the police service and get a police service inside of the police service that is above the influence of corruption. I think just the fact that international security experts made this recommendation should be a scary thing in and of itself to the country. That right there should be scary. Delivering the feature address, he said we have agreed to accept it to create within our police service what we call vetted units. Vetted units meaning groups of special police officers, men and women who are vetted to ensure that their integrity is intact. Because one of the problems that we have is that there are too many criminals in the police service. Rowley referred to an unnamed former police commissioner who he said gave him a first-hand account of witnessing an officer tipping off a criminal about a raid. We have those. We have to get rid of them because they put our lives in danger. The ones that have the integrity that you want, you got to protect them. I am telling this country that we are prepared to pay extra to police officers in those vetted units if they will maintain their integrity and help us to root out the criminals in the police service, in the customs, in immigration, and in parliament. Here's the thing, right? I don't have a problem with a vetted unit of police, but my question would be, who would be doing the vetting here in this case? And okay, if you can find some group, some board, some committee, some commission that you trust enough to do the vetting, why don't they just vet for the entire police service? Why have a unit of vetted officers instead of having a service of vetted officers? Doesn't that make more sense? And all 10,000 police officers supposed to be vetted before they enter the police service? Like, okay, if you're willing to pay more per officer who is now above this corrupt influence, okay, well, how about we take that more payment, invest it in this vetting committee that somehow is going to be created, and allow them to vet all of the police officers? Allow them to vet the entire police service. So we'd have a police service of vetted police officers. So let's say 10,000 officers we have right now, the vetted unit comes in, and only 5,000 of them could be vetted. Then, to me, fire the other 5,000. Let us have half of the police service that we are confident would be at this level of integrity. Why not? And further from that, too, the Prime Minister spoke on some proposals for a broadening of the firearm users licensing. He maintained his position that issuing more firearm users licenses to citizens is not a viable solution to address violent crime. And people who saw firearms licenses as business and profit, them telling you they are the expert in national security, and somehow the answer is more gun and more firearm licenses. There is a system to deal with that, but that system has been corrupted by the system itself. That system has been corrupted, I can tell you, by the police, he said. Rowley, National Security Minister Fitzgerald Hines, and other people met at a high conference national security meeting, and we're going to talk about that. But if you are saying the issuance of firearm users licenses to the country was corrupted by the police service, which is influenced by criminals who already have illegal firearms. Tell me, Dr. Rowley, does this make sense to you that criminals could influence the police who would corrupt the area of our society, the area of our legal apparatus that allows people to be able to defend themselves? Criminals would corrupt it, and because of that, now you are going to stop the citizens from being able to protect themselves from these same criminals. How does that add up? How does that add up? Think about it like this. So let's say someone wanted to harm the Prime Minister. Someone had it in their mind that they wanted to cause permanent physical harm to Dr. Keith Rowley. I don't even want to say those words before, they sound like I'm suggesting the thing. So someone had that in their mind. Now, what they did was they paid somebody in the Guard and Emergency Branch, those special police that protect the dignitaries and those higher politicians. They paid somebody in there to act a little corrupted. And now somebody in the Guard and Emergency Branch sold one of the specialized weapons that protects the Prime Minister, sold it to a criminal. So now they have information that the Prime Minister's Guard branch may have corrupt people in it. So here's what we're going to do. Seeing as the inner circle of the Prime Minister's protective detail might be corrupt, we're going to remove all of their firearms. Leave them unarmed. You see, we're not sure about where the corruption may be inside of that branch. So here's what. We take away all of their arms, all of their ammunition, leave them unarmed. So the Prime Minister would have a group of men with just their fists and their feet to do a few spin kicks, a little roundhouse kick, and that will be his protection. I wonder if he would be okay with that, or if when suggested to him, he would see how ludicrous, how ridiculous this sounds, that corruption by criminal elements is the reason why people cannot protect themselves from criminal elements. I'm sorry, Dr. Keith Rowley. You seem like a man who has been educated, some sense, but this makes none. But the Prime Minister went further from there, not just speaking about it, but it seems like he has been making moves to implement it. PM meets service chiefs, announces new police unit. The Prime Minister met with security chiefs on Sunday in a 4-hour-long meeting at the Diplomatic Center. The public was alerted to this via his Facebook page. The Post said he was chairing a high-profile meeting, which included the police commissioner, divisional commanders, national security minister, and the minister of everything, our very own energy minister. Added to this meeting later on, we found out the director of the SSC, the chief of defense force, along with several other executive members inside of the police service. And inside there, they were doing some of these discussions on how exactly they were going to implement this. But right before that meeting went on, the commissioner of police, who has been, some people would call it hiding, but she did not have an interest in speaking to the media about the murder rate as it stands currently in the country. That was not on her to-do list for the last week, but she made a statement right before that high-level meeting with the Prime Minister. COP speaks out as murder count crosses 300. Police Commissioner Earla Harewood Christopher has finally spoken about her failure to deliver on her promise to reduce the country's spiraling homicide rate by June. In a 16-minute recorded statement released by the TTPS Corporate Communications Unit on Friday night, Harewood Christopher sought to justify the ambitious target she set herself that did not materialize. I remember, this is Harewood Christopher speaking, I remember the assurances I made to the public. And while some would have said they came from a place of over-exuberance from me, it came from my desire to effect change and from my confidence that the TTPS has the capacity to achieve its vision to make every place in Trinidad and Tobago safe, she said. Here's the thing. That sounds like a nice intro to a political statement that says nothing. If you made an assurance to have a stipulated reduction in criminality that you're supposedly in control of, and it failed to materialize, You can't say that this promise came from my hope and then leave it at that. Okay, the promise came from your hope, but why didn't it materialize? What was the change that you did not expect? Because I suppose it has to be an unexpected change, some unexpected revelation, something that was a little different than you were supposing it was going to be, something that caused this prediction to not come to fruition. What was that? Or was it that from the making of this statement you were well aware that you couldn't have done it? That's what I think the population would like to know. They would like to know how to take you at your word. Should we take your word as just your hopeful entreaties, your hopeful fantasies that you spew across to the population, hoping that they catch your infectious spirit of hope? Is that the case? Or are you speaking as an executive member of a commission, of a service, and you are attempting to make policies that affect change? And you know, when you make this statement, you are speaking based upon a factual basis. You're going to make some decisions, make some changes, and you expect it to yield these results. Are you speaking with that, or with the hairy fairy hope and fantasy? That's what people want to know. However, she sought to reject criticism based on the unfulfilled promise. While I respect the right of individuals to express various views and comments on issues, albeit the views may often emanate from a place of despair, anxiety, and genuine concern, even sometimes raw emotion, and understandably so. There must be an appreciation for the fact that there's a lot the police do and know, no S is supposed to be there, do I know that would be imprudent and impractical for the police to disclose. That void, however, should not be filled with uninformed and often unwarranted critical views, she added. Here's the problem to me. She is admitting that there's a void of ignorance. A void that is created because, according to her, there are actions going on, there are decisions, there are facts in play that the police cannot disclose. That's what she is saying. This void is created because the police cannot disclose these facts. But the population is seeing the violence. So let's look at it. A void is a missing piece, right? So violence happens in the society. It creates this massive area of worry. Now, this area of worry could be filled by the police putting in some facts into the case. That's what the commissioner is suggesting. They could fill this void, but at the moment, it's imprudent and impractical for the police to fill this void. So the population is just feeling the void of criminality in the society. And her suggestion is that while she understands there may be despair, anxiety, genuine concern, and raw emotion, you should hush your mouth. Let's not fill it with uninformed and unwarranted critical views. How are the views supposed to be informed if they are not informing the views? What do you expect the people to do? Sit with their anxiety, their genuine concern, their despair, and just wallow in it and shut their mouths? Hoping and believing, having faith in the commissioner that she is going to find the solution. Although she tells us nothing, she is going to find that solution at some point in time. Let's have faith in her. While let's examine the faith that we are supposed to have in this commissioner. This commissioner said crime is going to be reduced by June. It increased. She did not tell us why it happened. She ducked and ran from the media. And now she's telling us, no, don't jump to assumptions and conclusions all on your own. I am not going to tell you what is happening, but you just have to take it and shut up. Does that make sense, Miss Commissioner? Really? Do you think suggesting that to the general populace, do you think that's a sensible solution? Like, even if you were the parent, and bear in mind, you are not the parent, you are not the population's mother or father. That's not your position. You are the commissioner. But even if you were a parent, in a situation like that, and there's something serious going on in the house that is affecting, hurting, and harming your child, and the child is asking you questions about it, you are not answering them, but you are telling them, shut up, don't assume what is happening here, don't come to your own conclusions on what is happening here, be quiet, take the pain, anxiety, and despair, and just trust that I will fix it, although you see no evidence of me fixing it. Come on, really? You expect people to hold on to this? She admitted that 286 murders recorded between January and June included 23 double murders and 4 triple murders, represented the highest recorded for the first 6 months of the year, with the second highest being 278 in 2018, followed by 259 last year. The average for the period over the past decade was 257. Haywood Christopher said gang activity is the greatest contributor to the homicides, followed by drug activity, with illegal firearms the preferred weapon to commit these offenses. She noted that more than 50% of the murder were committed in the area covered by Region 2 Homicide Bureau, which is responsible for most of the northern and eastern Trinidad. For the year, 51 murders were solved, with 47 persons being charged by homicide detectives. But of those 51 murders, 31 of those solved murders occurred last year. So of the 286 murders for the year thus far, that's 51 minus 31, 20 murders of the 286, 20 murders were solved. Haywood Christopher said although she and her executive team implemented a series of initiatives almost immediately upon assuming office, their efforts were hampered by numerous factors outside their control. We are seeing instability in the gang networks, rivalry among individual gangs, and alliances being formed between breakaway groups, resulting in fights for turfs. We observe the practice of repeat offenders sharing their experience with their peers and working to empower perpetrators to inhibit the proper investigations of crimes. Now, you see, almost all of these complaints that she made here, are they new? Are these complaints things that upon taking office at the early part of this year, when she made that statement at the early part of this year, that all of these realities were mysterious? No one knew before June, July of 2023, no police officers knew that some of these gangs may be facing instability. No police officers knew that these gangs have rivalries among themselves. No police officers knew that some of them are building up alliances with each other. No police officers knew that gangs in Trinidad fought for turf. No police officers knew that when you arrest some minor criminals, they go into the system and they are schooled on criminality by experienced criminals. No police officers knew any of this. So she could not have accounted for any of these realities when thinking about how she's going to run the police service. These realities came as thieves in the night, absolute mysteries to the police commissioner. Does that make sense? To me, it does not. She spoke about revolutionary changes in the whole business of policing that needs to be done, and they need to have ankle monitors for some of these criminals who are able to attain bail. They get bail and they go back out in society, so we want to be able to monitor them out there, and this is something that could be new. And what would you know, the opposition MP, one of the opposition MPs, came out to say, UNC to the Commissioner of Police, ankle bracelets for criminals already law. Opposition MP Dr. Rudal Munilal says Commissioner of Police Erla Haywood Christopher is hiding from criminals instead of confronting them. He also chided her advocacy of electronic surveillance bracelets as part of the crime fighting initiative to track people on bail for firearm possession and violent crimes. On Saturday at a UNC meeting in Taruba, he asserted, "We already have the law. It passed already. Do you know that in 2021, they put a bracelet on an alleged offender on bail?" So the issue is not the law. The issue is implementation. And then That's not something that the police commissioner needs to come to the public to complain about, because no member of John Public could deal with the implementation of the law. That would have to do, I suppose, with the judiciary, if you could get them to issue that as a ruling, one, or two, I suppose, with the government side, with the Minister of National Security and funding for the bracelet and for monitoring. I don't think that any of those decisions have anything to do with the public. So, as part of your job as commissioner, I would suppose, you would bring this to the relevant authorities. If you're bringing this to the public, here's how I would want to hear about this as John Public, as Mr. John Public. I want to know, okay, you decided to put bracelets on bail and people who were granted bail and are now open in the public and are out on bail. You want to put bracelets on them. You have attempted to do it and you can't do it because of X. X is impeding your way. And then you come to the public to say, listen, public, me as commissioner, I want bracelets on these bail offenders, but X is stopping me from doing so. Public, can we have an outcry to remove the hindrance of X? As it stands, what do I cry for as the public here? What do I appeal for as the public here? The only thing I could appeal for is that the commissioner does her job and goes and attempts to get the bracelets on people. And if you cannot get it, then you return to us and tell us what the problem is. This UNC MP also spoke about the Prime Minister's plan to create the very own vetted groups. Munilal, a mongoose gang in the making. Opposition MP Rudal Munilal denounced as unconstitutional and undemocratic the Prime Minister's proposal to establish vetted units within the protected services, especially the police service. And his idea is that if the Prime Minister is suggesting this, if it is coming from the Prime Minister, what is to stop it from being a political group? And the Prime Minister did say that this vetted group would also be targeting corrupt government officials, which may include some opposition officials too. So if you have a politician creating a specialized unit in a police service, you could question what would the intent and where would the loyalty of that specialized unit lie, especially if you are paying them more than the average. But to me, my main question in all of this isn't a question of the Prime Minister not being able to suggest this, because the MP said that it's only the commissioner has the authority to create specialized units, and this isn't necessarily the Prime Minister creating the unit. He's bringing the idea, I suppose, to the commissioner who would facilitate this. So to me, the main issue in this whole specialized vetted unit thing is who is doing the vetting. How are we going to be confident that this specialized group is going to be better vetted than the general group? Who is doing that? And my suggestion, as I suggested at the top there, is if you could get a group that is honest enough, has enough integrity to actually vet the police service and create a specialized vetted unit, then get them to vet the entire service. I don't see why not. But that's my idea. Tell me what yours might be. What do you think? What is your view on all of this? That's all I have for now. I hope you're educated, informed, or entertained, and I will see you in the next video.